Welcome into the Royal the Lions UK podcast, the show where Six Lions fans talk about all things Detroit Lions from across the pond. My name's Matthew Turner, alongside my co-hosts Ant, Ryan and Steve. Got a very special guest on the show for you. We've got Jason Bell, who was obviously a former player of the UCLA Bruins, Cowboys, Texans and Giants, but actually is probably more famous over here for being one of the faces of the NFL. Obviously does the Jason and OC podcast as well as the NFL show. Jason, thank you so much for coming on, man. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate it, man. This is really cool. And, I love all fans, but especially Lions fans.
Oh, why is that?
I'll tell you why. This is just not a statement trying to impress you guys so we have a good podcast. It is because Aaron Glenn is your defensive coordinator. That is my guy. Aaron Glenn taught me how to play corner. He taught me how to study film. He taught me how to be a professional. So wherever Aaron is, I am rooting for him.
I mean, we were going to have a question on that from Steve later, but let's lead with that. So how do you know him? Is that from your time at the Cowboys?
The Texans. When we was first year, the inaugural season, he came from the Jets. Him and Marcus Coleman, our starting corners, both my very close friends. And, Aaron was the best corner I've ever seen in my life. And you would watch him practice, prepare everything he did. He was a super professional. And you could learn a lot from him on and off the field. And he was willing to teach. A lot of players aren't willing to invest the time in other players, but he was. Him and Marcus were similar in that way. So, I mean, I don't think I play as long as I had without Aaron Glenn.
Fantastic. Steve, may I embellish on that later?
Yeah,
please.
Yeah, I was going to say, because we heard you shout him out on the last Jason and OC podcast, and I was like, yeah, there's a connection here. So I was going to ask you later, like, what's AG bringing to Detroit? Because obviously we've had it pretty rough in terms of our defense in the last few seasons. So what are we getting from AG?
So first of all, he's a great football mind. Even at the cornerback position, the way he studied film, he understood what everyone was doing and how that impacted him on every play. A lot of corners don't do that. So he was able to see the game holistically like that. And also, he's a super technician. So he can get into the weeds with players, especially your secondary, where it's something he needs you to fix or a technique he needs you to do. He can go out there and actually show you what needs to be done and break it down step by step. And he's a great communicator. I mean, AG can get along with everybody. He's stern. He's someone you have to respect, yet someone you want to call your friend because he can engage with you like that. So he's overall a really good guy, but when it doesn't matter if you can't coach, and he can coach. And he spent a lot of time under a lot of good coordinators learning the game. And you could even see his relationship with Parcells back in the day. Parcells brought him into the Cowboys for a reason. It's because the guy was a professional and he knew the game and he could teach the younger corners how to play. And that's what AG brings to the party.
Do you think I was going to say that Jeff Okudah mentioned in an off-season interview that like he didn't feel he'd ever been shown how to watch tape properly before. And then like AG's kind of like taken him to one side and said, no, this is how you do it. Is that kind of an experience that you kind of had with him?
Absolutely. I used to go in the morning with AG when I would wake up early enough to go in with him because he was the first guy in that meeting room and he was breaking down film. And the coaches already do it for you, but AG was still doing it for himself because he needed to see it the way that worked for him. And that's what happens. You look at young players and it's the luck of the draw who your staff is, who your coach is. Little things like breaking down tape is hard to do. And not that coaches can't do it and teach you, but do they have enough time to? AG understands how necessary that is. And for Okudah to say that, it's exactly the impact AG is going to have on that team. You see it right then and there. He's making a first-round pick who needs to play well better because he's teaching him the nuances of the game.
Do you think that's partly why he got brought on by Dan Campbell as well? Obviously, that's a massive aspect of it, but that they're both from that sort of Parcells tree and way of thinking. Maybe they've had their prior as well in terms of being at New Orleans too. So there's that. But do you think that's going to make their connection greater than perhaps some other coach who also has his skill set?
Yes, because it's all about philosophy. How do we see the way a team is built? And those two have been on been in organizations together. They've known each other a long time, and they have the same philosophy on what is the team you want, how do you want it to look, and how do you want to coach them. Both former players, egos in check, which is a good thing, operate differently, communicate differently. So I think it's a great situation. And I see why Dan Campbell went out and got AG as soon as he could.
Right, I'm going to crack on with a little bit on your career, and then we'll move on to the NFL show and then the podcast and what have you. So let's go for you came out of UCLA and you went undrafted, picked up by the Cowboys, and you made the team in your first season as an undrafted free agent, which is an amazing achievement, obviously. We've gone through Cup Day now, and two of the Lions DBs have made the roster as UDFAs, in AJ Parker and Jerry Jacobs. What was your experience of trying to make the roster as a UDFA? Because, I mean, a lot of it's obviously going to be based on special teams, and you excelled at that. But learning the playbook and being able to kind of jump in if required and showing that you're not going to be a liability, that must be so hard.
Yeah, it's funny because each year as a player, I could see the guys that were in the position I was that were going to make the team, and I was rarely wrong. It takes a certain kind of mentality and also a way they approach the game, meaning you can't have any fear. You got to go in and you got to fight every day. You don't get a day off, right? Your draft status basically gives you opportunities to fail. It gives you more opportunities to fail. It gives you more time, like anything, right? And so as an unrestricted free agent, as a free agent, undrafted free agent, you come in and your back's against the wall. I remember Darren Woodson, when I came into Dallas, told me, he pulled me to the side and he said, hey man, you move like a first rounder, but you're not, and never forget that. Because he said I could get out there and I can start comparing myself to other people, and I'm playing better, I'm doing things better. I'm thinking I'm going to make it, I'm going to be all right, but you're not. You have to fight even that much harder. With the way salary caps are and the way teams are built, most of them need young guys to make the team. And if you're close to a veteran at all, they're probably going to go with a younger guy. So the free agents know that. Those young guys, the cheap guys, they understand that. They know they're competing with a veteran. If they can be close to as good as him with his more potential and salary cap friendly, that's how you get the job. You can't really think about that when you're out there. You just got to go do your thing. But I'm telling you, every day was a battle. And a friend of mine who had went to Green Bay the year before me out of UCLA named Todd McBride told me, man, when you make a play, make sure everybody hears it. So I didn't care what I did. If I broke up a pass, I was yelling, just making people be like, what's that 33? Did he do something? Because people aren't watching you. I started playing so well on special teams. I remember them coming up to me, the coaching staff, saying, all right, now Jerry wants to see you play well at corner now because he likes you. And I'm thinking, I've been playing well at corner for the past 3 weeks, but nobody was watching because I wasn't important.
No, and the O's can only be in one place. So,
right.
Yeah.
So I knew that week I had to act like nothing else mattered. All the other receivers I covered the whole preseason, it didn't matter. I had to ball out that week. And that's the pressure that's put on you as a free agent, but it also makes you dangerous throughout your career because you know what it's like with your back against the wall.
We've got a question from one of the listeners we have on our WhatsApp group. We call it a fan group, but it's more like a line support group for how things have been going the last few years. It's from
support group.
It's from Phil Coop, and he says, why do you think that so many of the great special teams players tend to be just that and not carve out other roles on one side or another of the ball? So he lists Matthew Slater as the best example of this. How can someone clearly be so good at football and not have an impact on offense or defense, really? Why does that happen?
I don't see that question, no disrespect, is someone that doesn't understand roles in football. Because everybody on the field has a skill and a role. That's what the team is. And what happens when you're on special teams, it happens a lot to guys that are really great on special teams. You start playing more on offense and defense, you don't have everything to give on special teams. The hardest plays I've ever been involved with are in the kicking game. They're the longest. They're the most physical. It's open field tackling, open field blocking, everything flying at you. And the largest amount of yards are exchanged in those plays. You need a special individual out there. That's why Bill Belichick always has a core special teams guys, because field position is how you win and lose football. So when you look at guys with that skill set, even what happened to me in Houston, I remember a coach saying, they want you to play more, in the nickel, even though I was on the outside, but they don't want you to lose your special teams ability. And I was like, no, it won't happen. They were like, my special team coach was like, it always happens. And it does. It's hard. It's hard to run down on punt and then have to go turn around and play corner. It's tough. You just sprinted 40 yards. So it's not that these players can't carve out a role doing something else. It's that's their role. Special teams is important. Mm-hmm. You have to win at two phases of the game to come out victorious every week. So you are invested in those players just like you're invested in players on your offense and your defense. And everybody in the organization knows that. That's why special teams players get the credit they do. The whole team watches the special teams and film every week. The entire team. We don't go watch the offense. The offense doesn't come watch the defense, but we all watch the special teams.
Okay. And NFL show?
Sorry about whoever asked that question. I just got emotional, man.
No. I mean, I think it's one of those things, isn't it? If a player is getting a role on offense or defense, like you say, if it impacts on their special teams, they're not viewed as a special teams ace because they're playing more on another side of the ball. So it's one of those things where if they are a special teams ace, because that's where they've excelled.
It's a skill.
That happens because they have the time to do so.
Special teams, special players.
That's it. All day, all night. Rain, sleet, or snow.
Okay. So we'll talk about your sort of media career in a second. But after you sort of finished playing, did you ever want to go into the coaching side of football? Was there ever a career path there for you, or was media always the way you wanted to go after?
Early college, I was thinking maybe I wanted to eventually be a teacher. I was surrounded by people that were teachers, and I loved the profession and coach high school. But as I continued my career in the NFL, I just realized how much time coaches put in. They put so much time in. I was like, I can't do this effectively. Like, I can't do this. And I think I just didn't have that hunger. I wanted to be around the game, but not as a coach. But maybe things would have changed, because now in the media, I feel like I'm right there in the game. So I'm fulfilling that need and hunger. But yeah, I wanted to stay around the game. Obviously, I did that. I went into finance first before I went into media, but that's how I stayed around it. But coaching is difficult, man. You got to put a lot of time in.
Definitely. So speaking of the media career, obviously you've been a co-host and analyst on the NFL show now since, what was it, about 2016. How did that opportunity come about for you?
Luck of the draw. I was out here with the family, and one of the producers for the show had just started, and OC had just retired. I didn't know he had even retired yet. It wasn't announced, and he was playing in Atlanta because me and OC have always been friends. And I get a call from the producer saying, "Hey, somebody saw you at the pet store. We know you're out here." They literally saw me at the pet store with my daughter, looking at. I took her to the pet store during the day. That's what you do with kids. And so somebody saw me and was like, "Hey, are you interested in doing the show for the NFL?" And I thought, somebody got my phone number from somewhere. This isn't real. But I followed up, went down to the NFL office, and they told me, OC's coming in. And he's going to be a part of this. And I'm like, OC retired? He's coming? I was like, whatever OC's into, I'm doing. And then I spoke with OC, and it was go time. So no media experience. Never thought I wanted to be in the media, but I'm just thrilled it happened. And I'm very glad to be here doing this, which I don't think I'd want to do it anywhere else.
That's it. Sometimes you just need an opportunity to take advantage of, really, don't you? You've mentioned OC, obviously, but as part of the NFL show, there's obviously a third guy who you've been on there with, who you've got a lot of chemistry as well. That's Mark Chapman. What's he like to work with?
Well, it's Dan Walker now, my friend. We were with Dan last year, so it's the Dan show now, man. It is all Dan. Mark was great, though. Loved Mark. Mark taught us a lot. Obviously, well respected in the industry out here, knows his sports, really loves football. So the first years with him were just great. I mean, he taught us a lot. And it was, doing live sports with him, was amazing because I'd never did anything like it before. But, you know, he would give you little tips and tricks and just say, it's going to be a long day, relax, we'll get through it. And having his leadership on that was something I'll never forget.
Do you want to move on, Matt?
Yeah. Okay. So, Steve, Jason knows the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we all love the podcast, and it seems to have grown from strength to strength. How did that come about? Was that just you and Osi seem to be having so much fun on the main show? Did you just say, you know, we need time to just kick some of this stuff around for a bit longer?
Yeah, organically, one of our producers that does a lot of our NFL content now is going to do our Tuesday show. He said, hey, fellas, 20, 30 minutes before we start working, the conversations you have, and we would include him, Simon's name, he said, it's just fascinating. Can I just throw the mic in front and just record it? And we were like, yeah, cool. And he did that. And then he took it around the NFL office and was like, what do you all think? And they were like, we think we should roll with this. So I'd like to take more credit, but none of it was me. It was Simon, first of all, giving us the opportunity, and the NFL giving us the platform. And then really Osi gave us the direction. Osi was like, we got to be ourselves. We got to have the conversations we have. We love football, and stuff always comes around to football. It's a huge part of our life. But there's so many more things that we're focused on, conversations that we want to have, topics we want to discuss, and really challenge each other in a positive way. I think most people don't want to take the other side of an argument because they don't know how to dispute things in a respectful way. And Osi and I try to do that because that's how we interact with each other. We don't agree on a lot of things, but we talk it through and try to understand each other's point of view. And we always thought, with as confusing as this world is, as challenging as it is in football and in life, if people just can do that, imagine the things we could figure out and the problems we can avoid. So that's the podcast in a nutshell, is like, let's dive into things, have those conversations, and we don't even have to have a solution, but we can discuss it respectfully.
Yeah, no, I think one of the things with sports podcasts is they often almost like feel embarrassed about talking about other topics, and it's like, no, let's keep it on track, keep it on sports. And one of the things that I love about your podcast with Osi is how you talk so much about social justice issues, and you're not afraid to tackle these subjects. But what I kind of wanted to ask about was, obviously you're focusing a lot on topics that are driven out of America. And we always in the UK maybe have a slight superiority in terms of how we look at the difference between the two countries. But do you think, based on what's happened this summer with the whole furore about the England football team and taking the knee and the kind of booing of the team, do you maybe feel that we're not as progressive as we like to believe in the UK?
Well, it'd be hard for me to say that because I'm constantly learning about my new environment. So what I do here is I spend a lot of time talking and observing, because it's easy for me to have an opinion, but yet I'm on foreign soil. I'm a guest. So I'm trying to understand the parameters I'm dealing with, right? The history, the way people interact, because my experience here is different, you know, than someone that might look like me that's been raised here. I mean, I remember walking down the street and seeing this interaction with the police with some young black men. And I thought, do I need to help? Do I need to intervene? And I was like, wow, the respect those officers had talking to them, because they didn't have weapons. They didn't have guns. It was just a conversation. And I'd never seen anything like that. And I was like, wow, I feel really safe. Now, that's just me talking. That's my experience, what I've seen, which hasn't been a lot. I do spend a lot of time trying to understand the social system, the caste structure here, how that hierarchy is and developed, and how people interact because of it. That's very interesting to me. So whenever there is an issue involving race, I'm all about having those conversations. But I always take a US point of view because I have more experience there. Here, I look at it globally and I think of a global issue and how things can change. But I always think here, in all honesty, is like, as an individual, I always ask people, and I try to have the conversations like, what do you want? What do you want? What kind of change do you want to see? Because the change happens within your 5 friends, your community, your family. Like, it starts there. So the challenge is all on us individually. But I'm still learning a lot, and I really enjoy living here because of that, and all of these different challenges.
And then Os is obviously like also bringing in, talking about experiences, he's bringing from an African point of view in terms of that experience, which is really interesting as well, because I mean, obviously you're seeing a lot more African players in the NFL, and I think we've got 2 on the roster in Detroit.
Yeah, you do. You really do. Yeah, there's more Nigerian players in the NFL. There's more Nigerian players than in any other sport in the world in the NFL. Mm-hmm. I mean, Nigeria's national sport needs to be the NFL, because I mean, you know, that's what's happening, and nobody's really talking about that. You know, just like him talking about how a lot of those great players don't get the notoriety because people can't pronounce their names correctly, so they avoid talking about them. Something I never even thought about, and I was like, wow, yeah, I could see myself falling into that trap. You know, a lot of conversations we have about the United States, OC's experience was a lot different because he had come from Africa. So things I have an issue with, OC's like, man, that wasn't a problem with me. You know, so it allows us to have some really deep, thoughtful conversations from different perspectives. But yeah, I mean, Africa's loaded with talent for the NFL. It's loaded, and it's fascinating the things that are happening over there right now. And of course, my man OC's involved.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You're underselling us, Steve, because we've got 5 Nigerian players.
5, okay,
5.
Wow.
Got Romeo and Julian Aquara, Amani Oruwariye, Jeff Okudah, and Ifeanyi Melifonwu. So, and I hope I got all those names right. I hope I did. Ryan, why don't we move on
right?
with you? It's incredible. They should be OC's team. I'm just saying. Ryan.
I just want to say I'm also a defensive back here. I play special teams, so I know the grassroots. I play brick ball here. And that leads me on to a couple of years ago, the NFL Academy started for those late teens, the young athlete scholars, to help get opportunities for them to go study and play abroad. I know you're ambassador of that. How did you get involved, and what impact do you think it's had currently so far on these young students' lives?
So I got involved by basically begging them to involve me, because once they started, I said, please let me be involved with this, because this is amazing. So I convinced them to let me be an ambassador, you know, and the main reason I wanted to be an outlet. Last year was hard because of COVID, but really have a relationship with these players, talk to them about where their life is going to head. Because one thing about the academy is not only does it give them the ability to play a game they enjoy, but it also allows them to continue their education at a university in America or wherever that plays football. And that's the key. I mean, I always tell people the best thing that ever happened to me was going to college, going to UCLA. Changed everything for me. And football and the sport allowed me to do that, not only because of the opportunity, but because of the way I concentrated on every aspect of my life so I could get there. And we know as a kid, you have a lot of distractions, things are hard. But the academy gives these kids that platform, that outlet, that opportunity to pursue their dream, which is to continue to play, but also setting them up to be great people in whatever community they go back to. Because the life lessons you learn in this equivalent of high school football go with you everywhere. And that's really important. I mean, every time I meet the kids and I'm talking to them and I'm having conversations, I'm just so impressed at them. Their outlook, the conversations they have, they're so well-rounded. And the academy provides that. It's unbelievable. And it's going to be great to see the next 10 and 20 years how these kids end up and what they are doing in their local communities.
I just wish it was around when I was young, because I'm too long in the tooth now. Miles on the clock. And that, like I say, this takes me into like, hopefully these kids are going to grow. Like say, hopefully they're going to use their scholarships life after football. Like say, heavily involved in the NFL International Series. What do you see as the future? Has it outgrown London? Does it need to branch out into Europe? Is there anywhere you would like to go and see a game played if you got like the opportunity?
Nothing's outgrowing London, my friend. Never, never, never. I want more games here. You know, I would love 4, 5, 6 games here a year. I know I'm asking for a lot, but I definitely would love 4. I would like to see it played other places. I wanted to go back to Mexico. I want to see it in Germany. I want to see it all across the globe, wherever there's an appetite. And the NFL absolutely wants that too. But here in the UK, we are the forefront of this. And what's special is when the players come here, this is something so unique. I mean, you got stadiums that don't get sold out in the States. Come here, game sold out that quick. The crowd is different. Players come here, and everybody coming out of college and university, they know when they're in the league and they come here, they're like, oh, I heard about that. I want to play over there. Man, I heard it's different, and that's what it's about. If you've never been in the playoffs, it's the closest thing to a playoff atmosphere. I mean, a regular season game, and outside it looks like the Super Bowl. That's just, you're pulling up, you're like, what is happening here? Players feed off of that. The crowd is live in a different way than an away game back in the States or a home game back in the States for them. And that is what makes it so beautiful, because that's what's going to make the growth of the game so impactful for the players. I know it's going to be great for the fans and the sport in general, but from a player's standpoint, imagine you're like, man, I played there, I played here, and it was like this, it was different. That gets the players in the offseason to want to get on a plane and come out here, because you hear more of that than anything. Oh, I can't wait to come out there in the offseason. That was great. So overall, it's going to be great for the NFL. It's going to be great for the players. I want to see more.
Great. One final question, just before we have to let you go. Be remiss to not mention Strictly. I'm sure that you're asked about it all the time, but you were in last year's edition of Strictly Come Dancing, which for the Americans that listen to us is the Dancing with the Stars precursor. I think it was the original Strictly. You were in it last year along with Luba. You bowed out in week 3. My mum, when I said to her that we were interviewing, says, "Oh, tell Jason that I absolutely loved him. He did great." How did you find the experience? Do you think that you could have gone further? That when I saw that you were doing it, I thought the quick hits, the DBs needed, that would help you in the dancing. Do you still dance now? Give us a little bit of a flavor of what happened.
I'll never stop dancing because I got a 7-year-old and she's all about it. She's all about Strictly. So yeah, when I was lucky enough to do the show, and I knew the challenge was going to be real. I'm a professional athlete, man. I know it's hard to do anything else. Like I'm not fooling myself. Like dancing is hard. It's different. It's a trained skill. But what was great about it was what you learn about yourself. It was a tough challenge. It was hard. It was the things I went through as a player. And you mentally had to lock in. You had to overcome fear. You had to grind through pain. All the stuff that makes you better in the long run. When you think about challenges you have, you like, oh, I can get through this. And I'm telling you, Strictly, I forgot a lot of the way how I react to stuff. But Strictly reminded me, sometimes you got to remind it. You keep telling yourself you're one way, but you got to check yourself. You got to challenge yourself and remind yourself, am I really like this? And Strictly did it. I'm telling you, Luba was tough, man. Luba, I would want Luba on my team, any team, man, because she was no nonsense in a good way. Like, she wouldn't let you quit on yourself. She wouldn't let you make excuses. Like any good teammate, any good coach, any good leader. And it just reminded me something about myself, like we were talking about Aaron Glenn earlier. Like I find good people to follow, and I was lucky I could follow her. So it was great. I would have gone as far as I could have, but I mean, it was a great cast of people. It was amazing. I mean, Bill Bailey, who won it, man. He's so cool, man. Everybody was cool, man. Everybody loved talking football too, man. People love the NFL. People love the NFL. So it was a lot of conversations around the NFL, and I had a good time. It was a good distraction, so I didn't have to think about my footwork and my dance routine, man, and not get too nervous.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I know we've slightly overrun.
And tell your mom thank you. Tell your mom thank you, man.
I will do. We can't wait to see you on the NFL show when it starts back up, which must be next week, this week. It must be soon.
Yeah. The first game's Thursday. We're on Saturday.
Wow. I can't wait.
Yep.
It's gonna
and
be
then
so
Tuesday after that. Yep. So
yeah, you
and Dan. Get a photo for the socials. Everyone just give a thumbs up.
There we go.
That's great. Thank you.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much. And hopefully we'll speak to you again soon, Jason.
Cool, man. Keep doing the good work, man. I mean, this is what it's all about. I appreciate it, fellas.
Cheers, Bell.
Yes, thank you.